started. All right. And I just wanted to let everyone know today that we are recording. So if you miss a note, no worries. You're going to get the recording in your inbox. We're also going to share all of the slides. There's so much juicy data here for you, and you're going to get these slides in your inbox so you can reflect on it tomorrow. So we have so many people already in the chat. We have Fernando. Hey, Fernando, joining from the Japanese Friendship Garden and Museum of San Diego. Thank you so much for joining. We have Ryan in Oakland. We have Jen in Santa Cruz. Let's see. We have Margaret in Virginia, Princey in Dallas. Yay, Princey, thanks for joining. Kimberly in Fort Lauderdale. I myself, I'm in Queens. So any New Yorkers here, shout out. But yeah, this is incredible. Already so much engagement, already so fired up. I cannot wait to get us started with this webinar today. Again, we're diving into those top 2024 nonprofit trends, all the data back strategies you can use to grow your fundraising programs. And this is a truly power-packed webinar that we have for you. We have compiled all the data from our 3 annual reports, and we're going to be diving into that in just a few moments here. So just want to introduce myself for those of you who may not know me. My name is Candace, and I'm the Director of Events here at Community Boost, and it is my joy to be our moderator here today. And I really want to introduce you all to the stars of the show. First up is Pat Duffy. He is the co-founder of The Giving Block, a platform that helps nonprofits fundraise non-cash assets more effectively. His work in non-cash giving has been featured in many publications and awarded Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2022. So cannot wait for you guys to hear from Pat in a little bit. And we have Abby Jarvis, who is a writer, speaker, and researcher at Neon One. Her 11 years in the nonprofit technology industry has been dedicated to understanding how and why donors support their favorite causes. I think she wrote the report that she's taking all of the insights from here today, and I cannot wait for you to hear all of the amazing details from Abby herself. And we also have Michael Goodrum here. Michael Goodrum is one of the first team members at Community Boost, and he has merged his lifelong passions of human psychology and social dynamics with digital marketing to drive results across hundreds of campaigns for our nonprofit partners. He now leads the client service team while still working directly with some of Community Boost's highest impact partners, and really excited to have Michael here today as well. So appreciative of all of you for participating and lending your time and your insights to this discussion today. And Pat, I just want to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about the Giving Block.
Yeah, thanks, Candace. So Candace said on a little bit, but I'm Pat from The Giving Block. What we do as a company, first and foremost, is crypto fundraising. So we developed the primary solution for accepting crypto donations as a nonprofit, and we created and operate the biggest giving platform on the donor side of crypto giving. We've rolled that into stock giving and DApp giving, made those a lot more automated for younger folks who want to give big. And kind of our claim to fame is, of course, the crypto philanthropy movement, the annual report on crypto philanthropy, the main campaigns, the Crypto Giving Tuesday, everything kind of across the board. And we work today with a little over 2,000 nonprofits on this. And we're on track to raise about $200 million before the end of this year.
Powerful stuff. So check out the Giving Block. I highly encourage you to book a demo so that you can learn more about what this can look like for your organization. And Abby, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Neon One?
Well, Neon One is a company. We are dedicated to giving fundraisers the tools they need to build really generous, sustainable communities. So our platform that people are using to do that includes everything from fundraising tools to donor communication tools, a CRM that people can use for donor management, and all of the data and all the insights I'm going to share today come from the nonprofits that use our system. So they're doing some really remarkable things, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Thanks so much, Abby. Yeah, check out Neon One. Super powerful tools, especially for those small to mid-sized organizations, really help you manage all of your giving and relationships with your donors. So learn more about Neon One. We'll try to drop some links in the chat. And Michael, why don't you share more about Community Boost?
Definitely. I do have to say I'm really excited to hear from both Patrick and Abby today. I remember back on our nonprofit marketing summit maybe a year ago, Abby was dropping some absolute knowledge bombs from the Neon One kind of year-end analysis that they did. So I'm sure there's going to be more of that today. I'm really excited for that. But anyways, Community Boost, we're a digital marketing agency that works exclusively with nonprofits. We've been around for about 12 years, and in that 12 years, we've worked directly with over 1,200 different nonprofits, raising over 115 million online. Really honored to work with organizations like Charity Water, Save the Children, some of those other larger focused ones, then also down to some of the like more local community focused, grassroots focused organizations, and really everything in between. And as an agency, we focus on strategic planning and ad analytics for our clients. We are rolling out community first marketing and really looking at growing thriving communities with nonprofits this year. And then, of course, communications, creative, things like email marketing, landing page design, SMS, social media, conversion design, and so much more. And to kind of set the stage here today, in terms of the different reports that we're talking about, wanted to share this quote with everyone. So, even though human beings and societies have steadily adapted to change, on average, the rate of technological change is now accelerating so fast that it has risen above the average rate at which most people can absorb all these changes. So what does that mean? That means that things are moving and changing so fast that the second that you kind of like grasp where we've landed with the most recent bout of changes, they've already started changing again. It kind of reminds me of like the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland, where she's running and running, but the ground just keeps moving underneath her and she's kind of moving nowhere. And so we wanted to put these reports together to share with you what are some of those most bleeding edge trends that we're seeing so that we can take advantage of them now prior to key giving seasons like year end. It's coming up.
And so thanks, Michael. And so to really get an understanding of your challenges that you're currently facing, that I really do think that we're going to be able to take home a lot of insights throughout the reports that we're going to dive into today. But I want to hear from you. What is your organization's biggest challenge preventing growth at your organization? So is it does it look like budgetary constraints? Do you just not have time to implement these strategies that are going to move the needle for your organization? Is it staff turnover? Is it just lack of education on tech or how to use it? Is it board constraints? Maybe your board isn't just empowering you to implement these strategies. Is it outdated tech? Do you just not have the tools to scale? Is it effective storytelling? Maybe you don't know how to communicate with your supporters to tell the right stories to move them to action, or is it something else? So you can put that in the comments. And I want to see us get to at least 50 responses here. We're quickly climbing. It looks like budgetary constraints are in the lead right now. Limited time is a pretty close second. We have staff turnover as another challenge impacting growth. Lack of education on tech. You're here for a reason, and this is the right place to be, so you can get everything that you need to move forward so that you have all the education you need to implement these learnings. Board constraints, that's super common for a lot of organizations, and outdated tech are kind of towards the bottom there. But we'll give everyone just another moment, and we just passed 50. Okay, great. So I'm going to start reading off the final results. So I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to share the results with all of you so you can see just the challenges in the room today and really feel that, there's organizations just like you that are dealing with a lot of these same challenges. So thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. And my hope for you is that you come away from this webinar with some practical ideas and strategies that you can implement to overcome these challenges. So budgetary constraints look like it's in the lead at 37%. We have limited time at 21%. And we're actually going to be diving into our own data in the Nonprofit Acceleration Report a little bit later that speaks to these exact challenges when it comes to 5,000 organizations that responded to the same question. So we'll tease that up for later. So Great. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for engaging. And I want to kick us off with the first question here, which is why is knowing the latest data in the nonprofit sector so essential? And I want to put Abby on the spot and hear her thoughts first.
This is actually something that I'm really passionate about because I think understanding the latest data is useful in that it helps you orient yourself in a space. It helps you understand what maybe some of the larger patterns and trends are that are impacting not necessarily your nonprofit only, but nonprofits all over the country and then really outside of our country too. So one thing I hear a lot from fundraisers, if they're struggling to I don't know, get their board on board with something, or if they are trying to reach new donors and they're having a hard time, or if they're not getting to their fundraising goal as quickly as they maybe thought they would. That can be very isolating and very discouraging. And I think that understanding some bigger trends in the industry can be reassuring and make you feel less like you're alone. At the same time, I caution folks from putting too much stock in those trends. If you see that maybe you're not hitting a benchmark that other people are, or you're not seeing a positive trend that others are, you shouldn't make yourself feel bad about that. It can just help you decide where you're going to focus your efforts. So it helps you orient yourself in a space. It helps you decide where you want to spend your time and resources. But it should never be something that you use to make yourself feel bad or beat yourself up.
I love that, Abby. Yeah. I think it's one thing to take in all of this data that like and then apply it to your organization and keep that in mind, but know that your own testing and your own results are gonna really be the thing that helps you make the right decisions for your organization as well. But Michael, curious to hear from you about your perspective. Why is it so important that we keep up to date on the data and what's working and not working in the sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think to just say it, to sum it up really quickly, we just did this poll here where we all have there's constraints on resources in some fashion, right? So that could be budgetary, so it's money, it could be time, which is another really important resource, or knowledge as well. And so being able to kind of point your arrow, sort of like what Abby said, in a direction that is backed by data of, and we want to avoid groupthink too. So just because well, Mom used to say all your friends are hopping off a bridge doesn't mean you should be doing the same thing. But at the same time, there are lots of organizations out there who do have, at times, are more well resourced and are able to really dive deep into some of these trends, whether it's surrounding like, technology, marketing, whatever it is, fundraising strategies, that understanding what's working or not working for the masses can be really helpful in understanding where you should point yourself towards next. So yeah, I guess I'd sum it up by saying it's really essential because of the limited resources that many of us face in the sector.
Thanks, Michael. I love that perspective too. And Pat, last but not least, I just want to hear your thoughts on kind of like why are these annual reports so important in really directing nonprofits for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think it's the classic kind of like Pareto distribution framework where 20% of your efforts are going to produce 80% of your results. So like the biggest thing hurting nonprofits oftentimes is just direction, right? They're either trying to sprinkle 1% of themselves across 100 different initiatives, almost like lottery tickets. Like if one hits, we'll get there. And that tends to not get nonprofits there, or they're spending a disproportionate amount of time entrenched in existing initiatives, right? 80, 90% of their headspace and time is operations and programs that have existed for forever. And they just don't have enough of that sliver to know what to explore. So just getting all of the data aggregated from all of these different platforms, if it helps the nonprofits decide what areas to actually invest in, I think that's one of the biggest value props.
All right. And I just want to let everyone know that all of your questions, save all of your questions for the Q&A, put them in the Q&A pane, and you'll have plenty of time at the end to get your questions answered by our panelists and speakers here today. So go ahead, submit your questions in the question pane. I want to get to all of them. And I want to kind of shift forward and explore, what does effective innovation look like in the nonprofit sector? This is a big term, it's a big idea, but what does innovation look like in a way that actually moves the needle for nonprofits? And so, Pat, I want to just point it right back to you. What do you think effective innovation looks like for nonprofits?
Yeah, I think it's, you and I have talked about this, Candace, but it's something my mom always says, like haste makes waste. She usually said it about small things going on around the home, but I think it's this kind of ebb and flow of being reactionary to innovation in the nonprofit sector seems to be the biggest hindrance. So the inverse of that is nonprofits who have sustained exploratory initiatives around innovation. Like they're not doing things because they're bubbling up or just because they presented themselves in one annual report. They're kind of tracking trends. And it tends to be something as simple as having like a weekly innovation meeting internally with a couple key stakeholders where you kind of prioritize new donation methods, new strategies, what's working, what isn't, something you've seen bubbling up enough. And you get to this higher kind of level of data and internal conversations before you pull the trigger, and usually have a bit more of a plan. So I would say the inverse of haste makes waste, having a very deliberate longitudinal effort to explore different initiatives, which then helps you apply the appropriate amount of effort in one direction versus another.
Thank you so much, Pat. Yeah, I do think that making sure that you're pointing your efforts towards the right strategies is such a great way to make sure that you're innovating, but implementing it effectively. And Michael, I just want to turn it back over to you
Mhm.
to hear your thoughts on effective innovation.
Yeah. Yeah, I have two main thoughts here. First and foremost, when trying anything new, um, there's this framework called traction that I've been a big fan of for a number of years, where it's essentially like this large target, and around it are all your different marketing strategies that you have. And the one of the main premises of the book is to bring things into the middle when you really want to test them and test them effectively. So it's not this kind of like what Pat was saying. It's not just sprinkling energy across a bunch of different initiatives and like sort of hoping that they'll turn out. And then especially if they don't go well, but we only gave it 20%, labeling that as something that doesn't work. I think we see that a lot at Community Boost, to be honest. We'll work with an organization that comes in and they're like, oh, we like half-heartedly tried this marketing strategy and it didn't work for us. It's like, well, let's wholeheartedly try it and then label it whether it works or not. And yeah, so I would say that that's one side of what the effective innovation looks like. Another one I would say is how scalable is it? So we can choose activities that are, uh, you know, have a strong production in the short run, but require the same amount of energy every single time we're going to do it. And I think pointing to, again, the poll, which maybe I'll do every single time I talk today, just on the limited resources piece, like we can pick things that are going to have more scalable outcomes where maybe we still need to put energy into them in following campaigns, but the energy cost lowers each time we do it, is where I would encourage people to spend their time. And we've been talking a lot about community and like community first marketing and Community Boost, for that exact reason, and like building the flywheel of activating our supporters to connect with each other to like help have some of that scalability in our efforts.
Thanks, Michael.
So,
Yeah, I love that idea of even just like bringing your community into your innovative strategies. So that's really interesting. I love that. And Abby, well, I'll pitch it over to you. What do you feel like effective innovation looks like for nonprofits?
I mean, I can't say anything that hasn't already been said very nicely by Pat and Michael, but I mean, the idea of not just trying something willy-nilly, or trying something because it's new, or trying something because the nonprofit down the street did it and it worked out really well. It can be fun, but I would think that if you'll be more effective if you do look at data and look at long-term trends, and you do look at what your community actually wants you to do, and you look at things that have been effective in the past and you iterate upon them instead of just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. There is certainly a time and a place for throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, but a lot of times it's going to take a lot of time and effort and resources that you don't necessarily have an abundance of, and it may or may not work. So looking back at what's worked in the past, looking at what your community wants, looking at your deep, intimate knowledge of your community and what works for them, and then building upon that, I think will make you more effective than anything else.
I love that. Thank you, Abby. So what I'm hearing a lot of is, really looking at the data, picking out strategies based on what's trending for other organizations, but then being strategic in your implementation so that you're testing it for yourself with your community in mind and really seeing what is effective for your nonprofit. So thank you all for your perspectives. And kind of on the flip side, what do you think ineffective innovation looks like? I like to position this as, now we know what it looks like when you do it well, but what are the consequences or what happens when you are ineffective at innovation? And Pat, I'll point it to you for the first response here.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect segue. Abby was citing strategic implementation and Michael's citing getting traction. I think the scariest thing about getting innovation wrong the first time on a particular topic is usually it's not just the initiative that fails, but it's interest in the category. By that, I mean, if you are the internal person who's fighting for cryptocurrency fundraising or innovative payment solutions, you're trying to get the nonprofit into AI or experiment with a new social platform. If it goes poorly and the organization doesn't feel like there's traction, it's not just that initiative goes down. Usually the taste for the category goes away entirely. You become kind of this boy who cries wolf type problem where when you try to bring up a new angle at it or something else that might work, people don't believe in you and your approach to it. And they also don't believe that area adds value. Like we see this all the time with crypto. I think one of the biggest categories actually is stocks. A lot of nonprofits have this PDF with brokerage instructions buried on a microsite in ways to get involved. That's like impossible to locate. They get little or no stocks every year. And they're really convinced that it's not really an issue of their fundraising approach to stocks or how they present it. They're really convinced our donors don't give this way, or there's not an opportunity in this for us. That's, I would say, the scariest part to me when the internal stakeholder doesn't properly understand from everyone around them, what does traction look like for you? What would I need to accomplish or get done in order for you to feel like this was worth our time and energy? And do I have a plan to get there? They end up kind of overhyping, let's say, the category they're going in to work on. And if the team internally doesn't feel like you got there, they really give up on the category entirely, which is definitely my biggest fear.
Yeah, thanks so much, Pat. And Michael, I feel like you kind of touched on this idea even when we were on the last question of, if you go at it 20%, you put 20% effort in, you're not going to get those results. So I guess any other thoughts on like ineffective innovation for nonprofits as well?
I mean, Pat kind of alluded to it right there too, right? Like labeling something as being ineffective, from giving it sort of that half-hearted effort. You asked, you framed this question with what are the consequences of it? I mean, like the consequences are wasted time, wasted like dollars, which are donations. Yeah, and then the consequence too is just like was the oh man, I can never remember who said that it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But just a lot of like continuing to pour the same amount of energy into whatever the thing is to achieve the same results, which is something that we see. There's not necessarily anything like completely wrong or horrible about that. I think that's a pretty common way that we see fundraising happen, like fundraising campaigns. It's Einstein. Thank you, Naomi. We see fundraising campaigns be treated that way often, right? Where it's like every year end, we're investing the same amount of time to get the landing page correct, to get all of our direct mail and our email correct. And just like, yeah. So I think that it results in a lot of the same outputs for the same result versus seeing either one of those scale down or scale up.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I love that you touched on like those consequences that, it can look like a lot of wasted time and effort when you're expecting something to grow and you haven't put in those innovative strategies to work in order to make that happen. So thanks, Michael. And then Abby, yeah, just your thoughts on this topic of innovation, whether it's like what it looks like or what you see as some of the consequences as well.
Well, something that I see a lot, and I'll kind of build upon what the other two have said. Something I see a lot is an organization will try something new. They'll launch a recurring giving program, and it doesn't immediately take off, and they just step away from it. And that's understandable if you are, working to meet a fundraising goal that you've been given, and that's like your primary KPI that you're measured against. Of course, you're going to be reluctant to continue to put time and effort into a program that hasn't immediately returned results. But at the same time, like that can be really dangerous because you don't know maybe why that program hasn't taken off. So I had someone say like, well, I tried launching a monthly giving program a few years ago and it didn't work out. So we just never did it again. Like, okay, but why didn't it work out? How were you asking? Who were you asking? When were you asking? Was it easy to create this kind of gift? Did you only give it a few weeks and then decide to pull the plug? It's not an if you build it, they will come situation. Like, how did you promote this to your community? So I see that a lot, and it's understandable to want to pull back from a new tactic or a new program or a new fundraising channel if it doesn't immediately go well. But I think you can put yourself at harm or like in harm's way in doing that. So that's kind of ineffective to me. And then like as Pat mentioned, like it's been years and they're still reluctant to try to set up a monthly giving program when all signs point to that being a really valuable tactic. So it can be tricky, but it can have long-term consequences.
Yeah. Thank you, Abby. And thank you all of you for your perspectives. I really think that this is just the perfect segue to kick off our first section here on the state of philanthropy in 2024. So, Abby, I want to turn it over to you. Tell us more about what is going on in the nonprofit sector this year, or really all the data from last year that's informing this year, and get a sense of where nonprofits at today, and we can talk a little bit about what's happening tomorrow too.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to share some bad news over the next two slides, but then I'll give you some good news. So don't look at these first two slides and panic. Okay. So elephant in the room, we're seeing some negative trends in the space, right? So when we were working on the recurring giving report, we looked at fundraising trends and patterns over a 5-year period. So we looked at everything that happened between 2018 and 2022. And over that 5-year period, the average nonprofit's revenue, so all of their revenue, donation revenue, grants, everything, this is their IRS reported revenue, that increased around 8%. When we looked at just donation revenue, we saw that donation revenue increased almost 13%. And that's fine. Like we like to see increases. Unfortunately, though, that growth didn't keep up with the inflation rate of the period. So the cumulative inflation rate over that 5-year period is 14%. So the 8% increase in revenue, while it looks good on paper, means that although nonprofits are on paper raising more money than they had been in years prior, they find themselves in a situation where they're having to do more with less. So on top of that, and this doesn't come from our report, this next stat comes from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project. They showed a nearly 3% decrease in dollars raised in Q4, like year over year from Q4 2022 to 2023. So that's going to be something for us to keep an eye on. We don't like seeing decreases in dollars raised, of course, but that's just kind of like I said, like that's just to help us orient ourselves in this space. If we flip over to the next slide, another interesting trend that we notice, also not fantastic, is that a lot of this decrease in dollars raised, a lot of that decrease is attributable to the fact that fewer individuals are donating to nonprofits. We don't love that either. Over the 5-year period that we looked at in the report, the average nonprofit's base of active supporters, so people who are actively donating or buying event tickets or whatever, shrank 3.5% over that 5-year period. And the FEP data from last year, Fundraising Effectiveness Project data, shows a decline both in numbers of donors in Q4 of last year and in retention rates in the same time. So another kind of concerning trend that we saw is that in the FEP data in particular, a lot of the decline in donations was due to major donors disengaging from these nonprofits. And nonprofits have been relying on those major donors for an increasingly large percentage of their revenue. So seeing them disengage can be kind of a cause for concern. So that's the bad news. Fundraising is either it's kind of growing, but it's not really keeping pace with inflation. Individuals are disengaging, major donors are starting to disengage. But it's not all bad news. The good news is that we're seeing some really positive trends too. So yes, for our clients represented in the recurring report, we saw that the number of active donors declined at 3.5%. But in the same period of time, recurring donors grew 127%. And that's especially encouraging. I mean, we like the growth, but it's also encouraging because from what we can tell, it doesn't look like the majority of the nonprofits represented in this report are actively running recurring campaigns. They're not actively asking for monthly or recurring gifts. So like that just begs the question then, if nonprofits are seeing a growth in people choosing to make recurring donors and they're not asking, what could happen if we asked people to support us that way? Another thing I really liked that I think might be even more important than that growth is that retention rates for recurring donors stayed stable over that 5-year period, while retention rates for non-recurring donors declined over the same period. So these people are choosing to make these gifts. Around half of them make additional gifts on top of their monthly commitment. And all of these things are happening despite the fact that it doesn't look like nonprofits are actively seeking out or stewarding these donors. And so this is just a remarkable group of people and there's so much potential for nonprofits to grow this segment of donors despite those other negative trends that we just talked about.
Abby, that's so true. I mean, I love seeing these stats and I love seeing that's a huge increase, 127%. And I just see so much potential for the sector. So thank you so much for diving into that. And Michael, I want to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit more about the learnings from the Nonprofit Acceleration Report.
Yeah, definitely. And first and foremost, what is the acceleration report? Candace alluded to this a little bit earlier, but we sent out we sent out a lot of surveys, but we got about 5,000 responses back on our acceleration report. And so there were questions to which you'll see some of the kind of like trends in the responses here, but to nonprofits of all different sizes throughout the sector. So we feel there was a pretty strong sample size represented by a lot of this data. And so in that, to dive into some of it, one of the first things we noticed was a heightened focus on nonprofits expanding financial resources and achieving substantial growth outcomes during 2024. So we saw almost half, so 45% of nonprofits expect to see a moderate increase in their revenue. So that's from 4 to 14%, as opposed to last year, where only about 38% of nonprofits were expecting to see moderate growth. And then we saw a really large jump in the percentage of organizations that are anticipating a large increase in revenue. So that's anything over 15% or higher. It actually more than doubled. So it was around 13.5% of organizations expecting that last year to 28% in 2024. And so in that group of organizations that are expecting that 15% or higher growth, we saw a direct correlation between those that were expecting that type of growth and then those that were also making investments into digital advertising exercises. And so organizations, that reported they were already planning to use or already using paid channels like Meta advertising, Google ads, YouTube ads, etc., saw a far increased likelihood to also predict and expect high revenue growth for this coming year. And then kind of on the inverse of that too, we also saw a correlation with organizations who were expecting a decline in revenue, reporting on average they were less likely to test emerging channels. So there's like a notable decline in organizations' likelihood to try things like TikTok advertising, fundraising through cryptocurrency, shout out Giving Block, etc. And so, it might kind of like the innovation conversation we started earlier, might be worthwhile to consider a reevaluation of some of these channels as potential growth drivers in 2024. And then This one blew my mind. I talked about this at the Classic Collaborative too. It just is wild. The amount of fundraising that is happening online is continuing to just skyrocket upwards. So in 2024, about 35% of the organizations we surveyed through this acceleration report reported raising over 50% of their total revenue online, which in comparison to last year, there were only 14% of respondents that did the same. So we saw 200, almost a 250% increase in the number of organizations saying that at least half of all of their revenue, all of their donation revenue at least, is coming in from online. So that is just, yeah, it's just like a super strong indicator of where the space is at from a digital perspective. It's just like, I know we've said it for years that needs to be mobile optimized, and donation, it needs to be like a highly converting donation platform. Like, that's not new news, but it is really wild to see it show up in the data of so many organizations having 50% or far more of their donation revenue coming in online. And then lastly, I don't think this is going to surprise anyone here. It certainly goes directly in with the poll that we ran earlier. But when we think about like what did our respondents say are the number one challenge that they face in terms of innovation and just being able to achieve their goals, they were time and budget. And so the primary challenges were budgetary constraints, which was 27% of the time. And then, yeah, last year we had about it was the same as last year. The like what respondents said, we just saw an increase in the percentage of organizations that felt like these were the two main challenges that they faced. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael, for diving into all that. And Pat, tell us what is happening in the world of crypto philanthropy. I'm really interested in seeing the data that you're about to share.
Yeah, I mean, giving is up a ton, which isn't surprising given the market. I loved, Abby, your commentary on the increases in recurring gifts in the nonprofit sector. Your comments about like how much higher it would be if nonprofits were actively asking for it. We feel the same way about crypto. So at a super high level, billions of dollars in cryptocurrency have been donated to nonprofits. This year, we've raised in the first few months more than we raised in the entire year of 2023 combined. So because prices are up, about 200% across the market, we're seeing all of that appreciation translated into giving. It's the same tax incentive as stocks. So donors who give cryptocurrency get to write off the donation, but they also pay no capital gains taxes on the assets they're giving. So that $1 million of Bitcoin that we see getting donated to a charity, they get to realize the full value rather than if they had sold it paying 200 grand in taxes. So they're squeezing out hundreds of thousands of dollars more on gifts of that size. And we've got this year, for the first time, the majority of top US charities accepting crypto. The larger nonprofits have always been a bit more ahead on this. The Save the Children's and American Cancer Societies, United Way Worldwide, that we've been working with for a while. But to reach that tipping point of it being the majority of nonprofits, I think is just a really good signal to the market. There's always been really good examples out there, but now it's officially the norm. And then the nonprofits who are not just accepting crypto, but again, to Abby's comment, actively fundraising it, which is just as simple as putting a QR code in a direct mailer, or adding other ways to give with crypto stock, ACH, even stuff like that, at the bottom of their fundraising emails. They're really able to reel in these gifts by capitalizing on that massive appreciation in the market now that it's a multi-trillion-dollar asset class being actively traded on the stock market. And with this growth, like, this is a staggering number because when we started, it was like 60 million. It's 10x from 2017. There's almost 600 million crypto users worldwide now, which is a really staggering number. It's the size of the entire North American population, of course, spread across the world. But in the US, tens of millions of crypto investors with that additional tax incentive. And then abroad, we're still seeing millions of dollars month over month going to international nonprofits as well. A big driver of this growth, and as we see this number go from 600 million hopefully to $1 billion plus, will be the institutional adoption, as we're seeing Fidelity and BlackRock these two titans in the traditional financial ecosystem, really duking it out to be the home of cryptocurrency for the traditional financial sector. For context, BlackRock has $10 trillion in assets under management. That's about half of the US GDP. So really huge financial players moving into the space, and that's driven some of the appreciation and confidence in assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and beyond. And then, yeah, crypto giving reaching new heights. Like one of my favorite stats is to this day, this year, we're averaging 6 figures in donations a day. We've had a ton of days this year where we've had over $1 million donated in cryptocurrency in a single day. With year end being by far the biggest giving season, we get more in the last 2 months of the year every year than the first 10 months combined. So just again, alone, the fact that we're already past 2023 numbers, including the 2023 end of year, and we're raising millions of dollars month over month, it shows how much crypto giving potential there is in there in the market. And the thing I'm most excited about here is, again, calling back to Abby's comment, which I think is huge. There aren't a lot of nonprofits kind of following the basic guidance, even for the 2,000 that we have on our platform. The majority of our clients still, again, haven't pasted that QR code into an insert in their direct mail. It's not sitting at all of their in-person programs. People aren't going by a little platform at a walks program. And then, of course, in those emails, those capital campaign emails, just traditional fundraising emails, that other ways to give collection. A lot of nonprofits we're finding still don't have some of the basics like stock or ACH in there. It's only going to a credit card form, let alone things like cryptocurrency. Because there's so little of those connections happening and there's already so much giving occurring, we're sure that as the market continues to appreciate, we head into end of year, the additional exposure that our nonprofits give to their donors, that crypto giving is an option, should produce a windfall. Yep, and the clear drivers, like I said, making it easy to find, just the fact that crypto is finally reemerging in the ways to give menu, and hyperlinks off of the donate page. These are really driving a lot of the giving. Majority of gifts this year have come from existing donors who are hand raising into crypto gifts. I know a lot of nonprofits think of it as a new donor you kind of got to go out there and get. Huge growth potential there. It's about 40% net new donors, but the majority is coming from inside. So making it easy to give is really important as well. These younger donors who are giving through that touchless experience. And then we're doing millions of dollars a month through what we call private donor services, where older donors who diversified lightly into Bitcoin, it's 1% of their portfolio, but that ends up being $10 million because they got so much money. They like to give through an advisor or just get somebody on the phone. So we've got kind of a traditional giving experience there. And then finally, easy to accept. Nonprofits, like we talked about, getting that internal buy-in and really kind of following our activation program, making it really easy for their internal team to automate processes and documentation. Makes them feel a lot more comfortable, I think, putting that crypto option out. So us getting better in those categories, I think, is kind of grease the skids.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Abby, Michael, and Pat, for diving into all the latest data. It's a lot of data, but we heard that basically recurring giving is way on the rise. So keep that in mind as we get into our next section here. And as Michael was pointing out with the acceleration report findings, there's a huge jump in online fundraising revenue. So we saw that graph, it seems like online fundraising is just moving to a larger portion of the total amount of funds raised. So, having those online fundraising strategies dialed in is going to be something that we keep in mind. And then also crypto philanthropy. So we talked about, that crypto philanthropy is on the rise. And this is something that your organization should really be keeping top of mind when it comes to fundraising through the rest of this year and especially through year end. So I think all of these data points have been so helpful. And so I want to get into our next section today, talking a little bit deeper about what all of this data put to work looks like. So what are those successful fundraising strategies that we should be looking at as nonprofits in 2024 into helping us really move the needle for our organizations and raise more this year end. So Abby, I'll turn it over to you first.
Well, so you've probably heard this before, and it's important for 2024. It's been important for a long time, but I think it's becoming increasingly important. It's just absolutely imperative to really focus on building relationships with people who have a deep affinity for your work and prioritizing that affinity over someone's net worth or even their historical level of support for your work. So this is an example, but as I've been talking with people about the findings from the recurring giving report, I've had folks tell me that they are worried about prioritizing monthly giving programs because they are concerned that people who have the ability to give more than that monthly gift will not support their work at the level at which they can support that work. So they're worried essentially that they'll be cannibalizing their own revenue by inviting people to support them with a regular gift. And yeah, that's understandable. People who make recurring gifts generally give less over a year, it's a 12-month period, than people who don't. But when you look at both groups giving over time, you'll find that although people who give those one-off gifts tend to give more annually, they don't stay engaged nearly as long as people who choose to give gifts on a recurring basis. So when you look at both groups of donors over just a calendar year or over a 12-month period of time, it's understandable that you would be worried about asking people for recurring gifts because you want them to donate that just over $2,000 that year instead of around $950. But when you look at both groups over much longer periods of time, you'll find that recurring donors represent greater and more sustainable support. So if you're looking purely at dollars, purely at the dollar amount that someone is giving you on an annual basis, you may put all of your eggs in that proverbial one-time gift basket and neglect these people who are willing to give you ongoing support. And I mean, the average for those recurring donors, they stay engaged for over 8 years. So just purely if we're reducing people to their to their giving, which I don't want to do, it makes sense to prioritize affinity as much as or more than it makes sense to prioritize someone's affluence, especially when you consider that these long-term relationships and this long-term affinity that recurring donors have for the nonprofits they support can lead to other more significant forms of support. We know that people who make major gifts or people who leave legacy gifts or people who will donate stock or crypto to you are generally not going to do that right in their first few interactions with you. They're going to make that kind of gift after they have built a relationship with you. So as you continue to build a relationship with these donors who give their support month after month for around 8 years, you open the door to all kinds of additional levels of support. So that's one. And if we flip over, yeah, there we go. You're 2 steps ahead of me. So as we shift that focus from affluence to affinity, and as we focus on building those long-term relationships, that's only going to be effective if you focus on connecting with people on a personal level. We know that donors support their favorite nonprofits because they are deeply connected to a cause on an emotional and a personal basis. And I'm not just making that up. This is based on an analysis that we included in the recurring giving report. We did an analysis of something like 13,000 notes that individual donors left during the donation process as they initiated a monthly gift. And what we found is that over and over and over again, people are pouring their hearts out as they're making these gifts, and they're giving unprecedented insight into what is inspiring them to make that gift. And the patterns that we found didn't indicate that people are giving for a tax break. It didn't indicate that they were giving because they thought they were going to get a great return on their investment. The language that people used tell us that people are giving because they are having an emotional reaction and because the cause is tied to who they are as people. And these markers that I have here are recurring themes that we found. They're personal identifiers that people left in these notes. People are giving because they feel an affinity for a nonprofit based on their gender or their background or their race or their religion. It's very, very deeply personal. So if you're listening to this call and you're listening to me tell you that prioritizing affinity over affluence and prioritizing building relationships with people is important, this is why. People aren't giving because it's a transaction that they need to cross off like they're paying their electric bill. They're giving because it's important to them. And when you remember that, you'll have an easier time understanding why people are giving and building engagement opportunities with them that will reinforce their desire to support your work.
Thank you so much, Abby. Yeah, I think that's just so important, is just emphasizing the personal part. Like, I think it's so easy for, especially with online donors, to see them as a transaction. You just see the transaction come through, but yeah, it's your work as a nonprofit professional to turn those transactions into meaningful relationships. So thanks, Abby, for leading us through that. Now, Pat, I want to turn it over to you to hear more about, the crypto fundraising strategies that we can keep in mind this year.
Yeah, I think a big gap touches on, again, what Abby was saying about donation method and like ease of use, accessibility versus kind of these active approaches to presenting different donation methods to different donors. There's a huge gap between kind of the leading major nonprofits who don't have the same resource constraints and their ability to present different types of donors with different giving options and even steward them in accordance to those strategies versus smaller nonprofits, who, in my experience, have a belief that it's more complicated and difficult than it seems. There's a pressure that a lot of nonprofits feel to segment their donor base in a particular way and only present certain options to certain situations, rather than presenting donors with menus that make sense for them. For older donors, we see this a lot, where older donors are not being presented digital giving options, where, again, it's a smaller percentage of older donors who give DAF, stock, crypto through digital donation forms. But they actually make up the majority of giving in some months, just because those gifts, when they do come through, are so transformative. And then younger donors not being presented these major gift giving options at all. So younger donors who aren't being presented with things like crypto, stock, and DAF, because the average gift size floats between $5,000 and $15,000 a unit. That bridge being broken for some younger donors into major gift options, and the bridge being broken for older donors into digital giving, adds to kind of this double-edged sword of sort of ageist considerations around the donor. So the inverse of that is, of course, looking at the market, understanding when crypto's up, stock is up, that there will be more money in DAF accounts. Right now, there's about $260 billion in it, that there's more appreciated assets in crypto and stock that are heavily incentivized to be given over things like cash and a credit card. And then targeting those donors either passively by just presenting these giving options a bit more often as a alternate to the credit card form, or proactively, where you're actively setting, let's say, a crypto, stock, or DAF goal and saying, hey, the next $20,000 in DAF grants, we're going to match dollar for dollar, just to get some of those donors coming out of the woodwork. When it comes to cryptocurrency in particular, a lot of this that's separating nonprofits who get crypto versus who don't are, again, this problem of, do your donors know this is an option for them? So it's a classic rule of 7 thing. We used to think this was a crypto specific problem, but the more we've forayed into stock giving, we found that the majority of nonprofits still do not present their stock option proactively to their donor base at all. It's almost never, if not never, injected in front of the donors. It's more of like, if we're in a meeting and they ask, can I give this way? They're presented with a PDF or phone number, email, etc. The active injection of crypto, stock, DAF as in a few clicks donation option that a donor can send to a nonprofit is by far the biggest differentiator in who's successful. It's not big nonprofits, small nonprofits. It's not cause area, kids versus animals. A lot of our top performing nonprofits end up being on the smaller side, orgs like the Water Project, who raise more than half of their fiscal budget in particular years from cryptocurrency alone, just by sitting it at the bottom of their newsletter, by having it at the footer of their site, by putting it at the bottom of the fundraising email. And again, if they pop open a pamphlet at a major gift opportunity or a major gift meeting, the option is there.
All right. Thank you so much, Pat, for diving into all that. I think, yeah, as you said, it's just all about the experience of those donors. So, something to definitely keep in mind when it comes to crypto fundraising later this year. And for Michael, tell us a little bit more, about not just the fundraising strategies, but also the marketing strategies that are really effective this year as well. So especially as we look into year end, what can nonprofits be keeping in mind for their marketing and fundraising?
Yeah, definitely. I start off kind of start the section off with a piece of good news, at least from the report that we ran, which is that there was a very large increase in the amount of organizations out there that felt like positive and strongly and confident in their execution around digital strategy and their ability to drive online results. So that was great to see, and that was both a blend of nonprofits working with agency partners and nonprofits not working with agency partners, and we're just always happy to see confidence in that arena growing. And it grew substantially from about 9% to 35% of respondents feeling confident there. And then we also had a decrease in neutral responses, which again, great sign. So the number of organizations that felt like neutral about their effectiveness in digital marketing decreased to about 15% from 25% the year before, which is awesome. And yeah, I mean, we also saw a big spike in the importance that nonprofits are placing on multi-channel digital marketing. So when we say multi-channel, we mean, you know, not having all eggs in one basket, having more of a like omni-channel approach where, you know, we're having a unified brand, unified messaging across multiple different places where people's attention are at, so that someone can discover you on search. They can see potentially a video of you playing on YouTube, while then also having some recency effect from seeing you on social media platforms as well. But yeah, there was a large increase in the importance that organizations are placing on that multi-channel approach that jumped in just 1 year. And then the next slide also kind of shows too that the majority of organizations that we interviewed, and that's not the right question, that's not the right way to say it, that we surveyed for this report are using between 3 to 4 social media channels. And I'm actually not fully sure how it even gets to 10, what 10 social media channels look like. But compared to the previous year, we did see an expansion in the number of channels on average that nonprofits reported using, with many now utilizing 3 to 4 instead of just 2 to 3. And then what those channels are probably won't be a huge surprise. I feel like most of us on this webinar are utilizing the meta, you know, options that are out there. So Facebook and Instagram. We're still seeing a fair number of nonprofits use Twitter or X these days. There was a large increase in the number of LinkedIn users year over year, which is great to see. And then we are seeing, you know, it go down from there with YouTube, TikTok. I guess this shows how we get to 10. I know that there's I almost want to like ask Pat kind of on the fly, like your thoughts around doing work on Reddit as it relates to crypto giving, because I know we had a number of organizations really active on that. Yeah, Pat, I don't know if you have any thoughts on if there's people here who want to get more involved with crypto giving and how they could potentially play on the Reddit playground.
Yeah, I think Reddit is like the ultimate example of what we've been talking about traction. If you have someone internally who's interested in it, and preferably someone who's experienced with it personally, I think it's a tremendously valuable channel. I've seen, similar to Discord, some nonprofits try to navigate it for the first time and find it frustrating. It's not extraordinarily complicated, Reddit versus Discord, but it does require you to build up karma by posting and engaging and remaining consistent for a while before you get the sort of reach and ability to get your messages out. So it's kind of one of those things where if you have anyone internally who likes it, it's worth an email going out. I'm sure most nonprofits do have someone who uses it consistently. Having that person post on behalf of the organization and knowing it's going to be kind of a long-term strategy to not overinvest in is a good one, because when they start hitting, they really start hitting, right? Once you have an account with a lot of karma where the posts get a bit more reach, it's, I think, tremendously valuable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. And you know, transparently, it's not a field that we as an agency had a lot of expertise in, but it was really cool to see some of our partners who had invested a bit of time over the years into Reddit really strike what felt like a lot of gold this last year end by being really active on that platform from a crypto perspective. So yeah, we'll talk more about like what is in store for the future of marketing in a bit, but yeah, these are the top social channels, and just would encourage everyone here, if you haven't tried any advertising on especially like Meta and then also LinkedIn, YouTube, there's just so much potential bang for your buck that can happen there if you do it correctly and you really like kind of test that potential innovative strategy by bringing it into the middle and giving it full focus. It doesn't even have to be that much budget necessarily to really try it. So Yeah, we could probably run a whole webinar on just a slide alone, but we got to move on.
Oh, so many great details here. Thank you so much for going into really what is like what can we do this year when it comes to our fundraising and marketing strategies so that we can really see results at our organization. So thank you so much for diving into all of that data and really bringing us those informed strategies. And so I want to just pause here for just a moment to hear from everyone here. There's 77 people on live. What has been surprising to you? What has stood out to your organization? What are you already noodling on when it comes to, implementing these strategies for year end? So drop one chat. I want everyone here to drop a chat. What has stood out to you from this webinar so far? We have Laura Lee says crypto. We saw someone earlier say, Naomi said building relationships with donors. Jen said crypto giving, how hard is it to add it to our donation webpage? We're going to get to all those questions, put them in the Q&A pane because we'll have plenty of time for Q&A in just a little bit. Naomi's coming away with crypto and NFTs, any of the same. So keep it going in the chat. What has been, something surprising that you maybe haven't thought of before for your organization? And yeah, Laura Lee said affinity with donors, really engaging there. So keep it up, keep the engagement going. I want to hear your number one learnings and takeaways, and what is standing out to you so far. So let's get into our next section to really understand. Okay, so we talked about what's currently working. So what's the future? What's next for nonprofits? So Abby, want to turn it back over to you to really dive a little bit deeper into that point that you were getting into earlier around, building those relationships and not having, even though that donors are giving online, they are giving in a transactional way. How do you really build relationships with those donors so it's not transactional?
Absolutely. So I sound like a broken record, but it's because this is so important. Everything that you can do to focus on someone's relationship, not only to your organization, but to your cause, is going to make you a more sustainable fundraiser. And it's going to require a shift, right? It's fairly standard to have tiers maybe of donor recognition or donor stewardship based on someone's transaction history with your organization. And that has to be the case, to an extent. If you don't want to talk to someone who's just written you a $500,000 check the same way you would talk to someone who wrote you a $50 check, but you never know who is lurking in your database and maybe giving below their capacity or giving because they're passionate about you and will have higher capacity later, or giving because you're very special to them and they want to feel it out and see how you do. So an example, a friend of mine, Rachel Muir, tells this story. And this little boy had sent $25 donations to a bunch of different nonprofits. And, this organization got this $25 gift and they sent, the thank you receipt, and then they sent a really sweet thank you letter afterwards. And later, the nonprofit got a very large check from this kid's family. And they said that, no one else reached out and thanked our son for this small gift. You were the only one that did so. And so we would like to give you this gift. That still makes it very transactional, but it does give you an insight into what intentionally cultivating relationships with your supporters can do. Maybe someone is only giving you $30 a month right now, but they may have the capacity to support you in a greater way down the road. Those ongoing relationships are going to be important. What this also does is it diversifies your donor base and mitigates some risk. So we talked earlier about how some very large donors are starting to disengage from organizations they've historically supported in the past. If you are relying very heavily on a small handful of major donors for a significant portion of your revenue, losing one of those donors can be devastating. But when you have a large base of supporters who give to you reliably, with whom you have cultivated relationships, that risk is less. You've mitigated the loss of revenue that happens when you lose a major donor, and you're going to lose major donors. So if you really want to be sustainable, if you want to set yourself up and your organization up for long-term sustainability, that's building these relationships is going to be important. And as you do this, you can absolutely do this with technology. You can use technology to support your relationship building. Technology can help you understand your donors. It can help you understand people in your community who maybe aren't donors, but advocate for you in other ways. It can help you understand how people support you. Are they giving gifts, financial gifts? Are they volunteering? Are they giving in-kind gifts? Can you inspire them to get involved different ways? It can help you communicate effectively. It can help you understand what appeals work and what updates work and what donors like hearing about. But no piece of technology can build relationships for you. And that's really important to remember. I say this as someone who works for a nonprofit technology company. It is easy to think if you have the perfect CRM or you have the perfect tech stack, or you can write the perfect chat GPT prompt, or you can set up the right automations, that everything will fall into place and you can just automate this relationship building. And those tools and tactics can help you build relationships, but nothing will ever replace your human ability to understand your human supporters and use that understanding to build relationships and have very human interactions with them that will set them up for long-term involvement with your organization.
Thanks, Abby, for diving into that. I do think it's all about the personal, especially this year, more than ever. So, Pat, what do you see is the future of crypto fundraising for this year?
Yeah, definitely. I also we'll get to the Q&A at the end, but I answered your question, Jen, just asking about what it looks like to add a crypto donation option. So I've got a post there in the chat for anybody who needs that. The future of crypto fundraising rides on a few variables. So this year, again, because the prices have outperformed everything, crypto is the best performing asset class of the last 10 years, the last 5 years, and certainly the last year. People have a major incentive to give their crypto over cash, and there's currently trillions of dollars in it. So for the nonprofits who fundraise it, the year ahead continues to look extraordinarily positive. There's definitely market cycles when it comes to crypto, of course. But that volatility has been leading to a lot of giving. Going into the future, the biggest drivers are going to be how many nonprofits add a crypto giving option that donors actually see. We still sometimes find these donate crypto buttons collecting dust somewhere, similar to the old kind of stock options. B, it's a tax literacy variable. Some of these donors are younger, right? These are people in their teens, their 20s, their 30s who do their tax on TurboTax. They trade crypto on Coinbase and they buy stocks in Robinhood. They aren't working with financial and tax advisors oftentimes. And if nonprofits don't ask for crypto and their advisors don't tell them to give that way, there's still billions of dollars, right, in the US, tens of billions of dollars, I'm sure, in terms of giving potential that doesn't happen just because the donors don't know they can give this way and the nonprofits don't ask. So that donor literacy variable is going to be a big one. And then finally, nonprofits actively asking for it. So the Save the Children's of the world, the American Cancers, the Water Project, I'd say the top 200-300 nonprofits or so who fundraise crypto at a really high level. They tend to do a couple small crypto fundraisers. They steward accordingly. And when the market goes up, they tend to shoot notes out to those donors and make sure they remind them that crypto giving is an option and build out an effective plan.
I love it. Targeting those younger audiences particularly. Thanks, Pat. And so, Michael, what's the future of marketing for the nonprofit sector?
Just the future of marketing. No big deal. Let's get into it. I am keeping an eye on time too, just so everyone knows. We got some, just looking at how many slides we have left. So I want to make sure we can get to the Q&A too. So I'll keep some of this relatively quick. We talked about the percentage of organizations that are seeing over 50% of their donation revenue coming online. We are seeing a correlation with that in the amount of investment that organizations are making into digital advertising too. So we saw an increase of 27% year over year of nonprofits investing more into digital advertising, which is great. I mean, that's an indicator that, kind of like we talked about at the very beginning, how do we use data to make better decisions? Like, as much of your budget as you can move into that digital advertising space. That is where people's attention is at and continues to be more and more at in this year. And then really this is showing, we will send this deck out to you for those, or send out the recording for those who want to look at this. But yeah, we are seeing for over 60% of the organizations that we sent this survey out to, saying that most of these advertising channels are at least moderately, if not very important to their online fundraising efforts. And we can get a little bit more into some of the specifics here. So the number one was a big jump in organizations saying that email marketing is extremely important, compared to 52% in 2023. A large jump in organic social media. So seeing more success and importance out of that, which I know we almost had like a departure from organic social media for a few years towards like a really heavy investment into paid. But as we're starting to see more of the like community first mindset come about, the reemergence of really investing into organic social media being important in 2024. Really happy to see this one too. You know, there was also, at least maybe even anecdotally for myself, in what I saw at Community Boost and with our partners, a bit of a lull in direct mail in the early 2020s, and great to see a resurgence in the importance that organizations are feeling that it plays in their marketing mix as we get into 2024. The ad grant, I mean, guys, if you're on this webinar, you've stuck around to the end and you're not using the Google ad grant, come on, what are we doing? $10,000 in free advertising on Google every single month. Yeah, it's just it's a gimme, and that's great to see that 47% of organizations are reporting that it's very important to their strategy. Yeah, if you're deploying 120 grand in ad spend at least like somewhat effectively every year, it should be an effective part of your strategy for sure. So it's great to see. And then also seeing an increase in the organization saying that SEO is important too. So optimizing for your organic results. I think the brief thing I'll say there is that if your organization can show up as a thought leader for certain topics that you know deeply and you know quite well. So for whatever reason, my mind jumps to this child sponsorship organization that we work with, who primarily works out of India. And they have this entire report on like tricks and schemes that these kidnappers use to like do what they do. And they have an entire page on their website committed to like sharing all that information, really exposing it. And they've been able to rank extremely highly on Google for that information, which is really cool, because then anyone who's looking for that kind of data or is trying to understand more like why does trafficking happen, is able to find that information from them first because of this investment into SEO they've made. And then they tee that up with remarketing to some of these other advertising channels that they're in. And that's how we start to get more of that like multi-channel approach. So yeah, seeing an increase in the importance of SEO too, which is awesome. And yeah, I mean, there's also some further insights into that more multi-channel marketing strategy. We're seeing a double in importance that nonprofits are placing on SMS campaigns and fundraising, which if you're leveraging a platform like Neon, you're going to be extremely, far more likely to be effective with a strategy like that. Of course, we've talked a lot about paid advertising today too, but we're seeing those gaining more traction too, which includes the Google ad grant, which technically you don't have to pay for, but is still leveraging Google's ad spend on it. Microsoft Ads for Social Impact. So shout out for anyone who isn't aware on this webinar, Microsoft also has an ad grant. They turn it on and off in terms of its availability. So if you have it, it's always on, but they sometimes like reach the cap of how many they can onboard within a single time, but definitely worth looking into. And then paid search ads, direct mail with higher percentages of respondents, considering them really important. And then, yeah, we're seeing emerging platforms. I know TikTok isn't anything new at this point, but still seeing TikTok ads like really gaining more attention, and then really promising results from the initial tests that we've run, where we're seeing extremely competitive cost per acquisition for both leads. So people who are saying, I want to be notified when there's an opportunity to support or help, as well as a very competitive and oftentimes far better return on ad spend when it comes to donation campaigns on TikTok. So something worth considering, but of course that comes with the need to build creative for TikTok too.
All right. So many great insights, next steps, really what the future holds when it comes to both recurring giving and really actually just deepening those donor relationships. The future of crypto. If you're not already using crypto fundraising, now's the time. You're in the minority if you're not already accepting crypto. And yeah, and thank you so much, Michael, for leading us through just like that full surround sound effect that nonprofits can achieve when they have multi-channel marketing strategies in place so that they're able to truly and I think this almost ties into what Abby was saying earlier with like building those relationships where everyone's online. You're on your phone, you're listening to a podcast, you're engaging online in all of these ways. So like how do you build those relationships? And it's through a lot of communications like the ones that we just talked about. So thank you so much, everyone. And keep the questions coming in the Q&A pane. We are going to have some time to go through those. Really want to get your most pressing questions for this incredible panel here. And then last, but certainly not least, I just want to talk a little bit about those emerging trends. So the things that are trending up and are the strategies of tomorrow that nonprofits can use to truly future-proof their strategies. So want to kick this back over to Pat to really take it from here.
Yeah, I'll keep this really tight. So I want to make sure we have Q&A time. But at a super high level, we're seeing nonprofits willing to bridge that divide between the digital and the physical, I would say is the biggest thing we're seeing. So with things like crypto, but not just crypto, I mean, stock, DAF, even things like credit cards and ACH, we found over the last year or two, there are a lot of nonprofits where even for things like a direct mailer, they don't have something as simple as like a QR code in an insert where you can hover your phone over the piece of paper and initiate a transaction. They're just doing, let's say, cash and checks on the way back. Like little things like this, again, adding QR codes to physical documentation, adding ways to give at the bottoms of emails are unlocking a lot of the additional giving potential, knowing that things like credit cards will give you $100 to $300 average gift size versus really high upset on the other one. So a lot more giving is coming from crypto and stocks from younger donors as these platforms get more adapted to the giving side of things. And then nonprofits adapting to that intersection between their physical fundraising and their digital.
Thanks, Pat. And Michael, so tell us a little bit more about, those emerging channels also from the Nonprofit Acceleration Report as well.
Those emerging channels from the nonprofit. Yeah. So, I mean, I think really like TikTok and SMS are the two that stand out the most to me. I think we definitely need to get crypto fundraising more tightly into this year's acceleration report to really get a strong pulse there. Candace, were we supposed to go to the next slide or no?
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of reiterate, so we did even see some really increased trends. It almost doubled the amount of organizations likely to use cryptocurrency. So we saw that in the acceleration report as well, which was
Got it.
super interesting. That just in 1 year, the likelihood of nonprofits to use crypto has doubled. So shout out to the Giving Block too. So you're able to truly leverage their platform for accepting crypto. And it also is really interesting to see that in general, of those like emerging channels that we position to organizations in the nonprofit acceleration survey, 85% of respondents as a whole were interested in using emerging channels this year as opposed to 70% last year. So there's like this increasing like willingness for organizations to try some of these more like cutting edge strategies for their organizations, which is like really, really interesting. And then I want to, bring it back over to you as well for just talking to again, like some of those more emerging channels that we should be keeping an eye on for options.
Definitely. Sorry, I appreciate you filling in there. Getting mixed up on which slides we're looking at, but yeah. So Kind of like I was mentioning, seeing that growth in SMS marketing as we get deeper into 2024. I think this is going to continue to be a trend as well as we move to 2025. But when we say SMS, we of course mean like text to message campaigns. Has seen a huge rise and increase both in the adoption of it, but then also we've seen an increase in the impact and effectiveness of it when it's done well, right? When you're able to time your messages appropriately, when you're able to send them to the correct audiences that are segmented well, and then of course having like that data in an easy to access manner. And I really like Neon is probably my favorite CRM when it comes to being able to roll out campaigns like this with extreme effectiveness, have them tied into the cadence of your email campaigns and the other things that you're doing as well. And I'll talk about TikTok, but I don't know, Abby, if there's anything you want to share about Neon and your, I don't know, just things that like Neon offers to like really help take SMS campaigns to the next level.
Well, we're actually just getting ready to do kind of an overhaul of our communication systems in general. So I can't share a lot right now, but I can feel my product manager willing me to keep my mouth shut. But we do have some exciting things coming up soon that if you keep an eye out, we'll send you some updates.
Okay, awesome. Cool. And then last but not least, too, I mean, this also is a huge kind of, I think about Neon with this as well in terms of systemized AI adoption that helps you like really set you up for success. And that's where we can automate some of those repetitive tasks. And then I could like read this whole paragraph, but at the end of the day, like getting teed up to take the most important, valuable actions at the right time with the right players, so the right audience members especially within your CRM, really is going to help you spend your time more effectively and help you raise more too.
So I guess I want to pause here as well, just to see like, Pat and Abby, I guess Pat, if you want to go first, how nonprofits can look at systemized AI adoption for their nonprofit as well. I just think it's so interesting to see so many organizations that are truly eager to adopt these strategies. So I guess like maybe like what's like one tip like that each of you would give for organizations looking to adopt AI into their organizations?
Yeah, definitely. I think similar to what we're saying about innovation, like rather than it being a reactive use case when you're trying to kind of find a solution in search of a problem, just getting good at using it in the same way that I think the best way for nonprofits to get into crypto is by doing something else, right? Getting into AI, new social media platforms. If you work that muscle group of doing innovation, I think you'll be better at using it for things like crypto, expectation setting, adoption, finding traction. Best thing you can do is just play with it, right? Try to ask you questions about optimizing your calendar, try to have it rewrite something for you, getting better at the prompts. If the first thing you do is apply it to a use case where it's actually most needed, that adoption curve and that education curve could be frustrating. So if it's something you're interested in, or if you have someone on your team who's uniquely interested in it, just having them play with it on kind of lower stakes problems, where the variable of whether or not it's successful or not really won't drive people one direction or another, I think is the best thing to do. Just kind of get good at using things like ChatGPT and Boodle.
And
yeah,
now,
yeah, I'm so curious. I'll let you take it away.
so one thing, just kind of to reiterate that, like, do play around with it. And one thing that I would caution you. So I think there are two ways that nonprofits can really use AI effectively, and someone's actually alluded to it earlier, like looking at things like predictive amounts to include in your asks, or trying to use AI to identify like which donors may be at risk of lapsing or things like that. But for better or for worse, when we talk about AI, a lot of people think of generative AI. So AI that creates content for you. And while that is not the only type of AI or the only application of it, it's certainly one of the most common. And one thing I would really encourage you, especially since I've spent so much time talking about the value of personal relationships, treat AI, particularly generative AI, kind of like you would treat a really enthusiastic intern that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing. Because if you take what you get when you put prompts into ChatGPT, people can tell sometimes if you've used generative AI to spit out an appeal or a thank you letter or whatever. It's got kind of an uncanny valley feeling. Maybe it's because I'm a writer, but I've gotten some AI generated emails that I'm just like, oh, a robot wrote this to me. And it's not helpful to scale up your communications with your supporters if you are doing so in a way that makes them feel like you are a robot talking to them. So use generative AI. It's great if you get stuck. It's great if you need an outline. It's great if you need a first draft. Please, please, please rewrite it. And also if you ask it a question about a best practice, take what it says with a grain of salt. Because I've asked it best practices about fundraising, and some of the answers it's given me is just appalling. So use it, but be careful with it.
As with anything new, always want to be cautious and really, really see what it has to offer your organization. So I love all of this. This has been so incredible. I want to just hear from all of you in like 1 or 2 sentences, just what is one action item you want everyone leaving here today with? So what's that one next step that people can take?
I'm unmuted, so I'll go first. I know it is kind of intimidating when you hear people like me talking about launching recurring programs, or you hear about the rising significance of running a multi-channel marketing campaign, or you hear about the increasing desire for people to donate through crypto. It's really easy to feel intimidated by this. So if you are wanting to start any of these initiatives or try any of these things, remember the people who you're talking to, the people who will support your mission, are human beings. They're just like you. And they are giving to your cause because they're passionate about your cause. So give yourself grace. Whether you're asking for recurring donations or trying TikTok or setting up the ability for someone to donate stock, you're a human being. The people who support you are human beings, and they're supporting you because they love what you do. And I hope that makes it a little less scary or a little less intimidating.
Michael, how about you? What's one next step for everyone here
I
today?
love, I love what you said so much, Abby. I think it's easy to lose sight of that when we're in the weeds with everything. What's one thing? It's really hard not to stay if you don't have the ability for people to give crypto, set that up like that. I don't know. I should probably talk about digital marketing, something like that. But realistically, that's even from like Pat. I know we've run webinars in the past too. Yeah, that's my main takeaway. If you don't have a way for people to give crypto, even off what Abby just said, where they're giving because they really care about your organization and giving them another avenue to give. Like I have crypto and I've donated it as well. Just do it. That would be my main takeaway from this.
How
Love
dare you
it.
steal mine? No, I won't say that one then. I also agree. Obviously, you should take crypto. I would say if you don't take crypto, look at like just go to thegivingblock.com and just look at the logos. Like it's American Cancer, Save the Children, St. Jude, United Way Worldwide, Feeding America. It's just like if you go through the list, it's like every major nonprofit with the most red tape and the most terrified boards and conservative leadership. It's like they're all taking it. It's a lot more put together than you think. It's not through wallets. It's using institutional exchange accounts. They're regulated like banks. Like it's really nicely put together at this point, and treated very much the same as stocks. I'll throw my answer back in the direction of Community Boost though. Those Google ad grants and those Microsoft grants that nonprofits aren't using, it's so much free money and advertising potential. And for some of these questions we've seen around, should we have certain donation options? Should we even have a site online where we can take gifts? I know there's a lot of small nonprofits who are just kind of getting their feet under them. It is such an important muscle group to work, not only using those ads to try to get some exposure out there, but getting good at running ads helps you use all of these other platforms, including social. When you start putting together a budget and using your paid, getting that leg up on the free stuff is really going to help you when you have some money to spend. So getting those free paid ad opportunities so that you can kind of work that muscle group and figure out how to market with your own budget.
Thanks, Pat. I love that. And I just put a link in the chat in case anyone does want to just learn more about leveraging the Google ad grants, or really the Microsoft offerings as well. You can book some time to chat with our team if you're interested. And yeah, I want to just kind of end it right here. We have some Q&A. If you guys can stay on for a few minutes, I'd love to get through a couple questions, but this is your chance. Go ahead. You can access all of these reports So if you want to go ahead, you can download the 2024 Nonprofit Acceleration Report. I'm also going to put that link in the chat so that you can go ahead and download that, and want to kick it over to Pat to share more about this $500 in Bitcoin offering.
Yeah, so this is for the month of June. Nonprofits who sign up with the Giving Block, we're going to donate $500 in Bitcoin. We have it staggered in smaller gifts around when you set up the giving solution with the exchange account and when you go live with that solution on your site. And even things around this activation process where we make sure it's in the right menu on your site so donors can find it. The page is designed for search engine optimization and donor conversion, all that good stuff. It's really kind of rewarding all these steps that we talked about that increase the odds that you get more donations, which we're all obviously mutually aligned on. So definitely take advantage of that before we stop giving away all our money.
Love it, love it. Great. And that link is in the chat as well. And Abby, this recurring giving report is incredible. I think everyone should download it right now. I think you should do all of these things because all of them are so incredible. But Abby, any last thoughts about, just that recurring giving report and the offerings that you have here?
I'll just say that one thing that I didn't really get to touch on is because the recurring giving report is quite long. We took the industry-wide trends, of course, but we also looked at individual trends for small, mid-size, and large nonprofits based on their revenue band. So whether you work for an organization that is bringing in $5 million plus in revenue or 50,000 in revenue, if you look in that report, there is a section for you with specific trends and takeaways for you, with specific advice from nonprofit leaders and with specific examples from nonprofits your size. So it's not just huge tables that are really useful for industry analysis and nothing else. You'll find something for you too.
All right. Thanks so much, Abby. It's a great report. I'm just so thankful for all of you here today diving into this data. There's more. You can go deeper when you engage and download those reports and also sign up for the Giving Block. And this is your opportunity. Don't leave here without all three. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for engaging. You are effectively innovating just by being here because you're getting those learned strategies that are currently working for organizations and hopefully leaving with those next steps and takeaways that can really help you implement this and see how they work for your organization. Really, really thankful to everyone. And yeah, this was so great. I think there's 2 questions that maybe we can get to. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. But Naomi asked, what would a reason be for major donors disengaging? I think this one is for Abby.
So one thing that is difficult when we're looking at data like this. So when I look at the Fundraising Effectiveness Project and we see that a lot of the decline in giving in Q4 of last year is because major donors are disengaging. The data is really good at telling us what happened, but it's not really good at telling us why it happened. That said, I can make some educated guesses. So we know that some of the top reasons that donors disengage from the nonprofits they support, they don't feel like they've been thanked or appreciated enough. They don't feel like their money is actually being used to make an impact, or they don't understand how their money has made an impact. Frequently, we do see that people are no longer to afford giving at the same levels at which they've given. There are a few reasons. Another thing I can say is that, and I feel funny saying this because I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but when I've looked at fundraising and philanthropic trends in the past, major donors are more likely to reduce or withdraw their support in instances of socioeconomic uncertainty. That's not necessarily the case for smaller dollar donors. In fact, we've seen even in the recurring giving report that people who donate smaller amounts tend to increase their support during periods of economic trouble. But over the last few years, we've seen a lot of conversations. Is there a recession happening? Is there not? Inflation is high. The interest rates are going up. The Fed's not going to cut interest rates anytime soon, blah, blah, blah. Major donors are more likely to be impacted by economic trends like that. And I suspect that their disengagement in Q4 of last year may be a combination of the relationships I have with the nonprofits they support and some of those economic uncertainties that we've been seeing over the last few years. But again, that's anecdotal. It's an educated guess. I don't have any hard data points around it. So take everything that I just said with a grain of salt.
Thank you so much, Abby. That was so much great information. I feel like we should just have like a whole webinar on that alone. So that'll be the next one. But we'll get that all to you. And really appreciate your insights there. And Marilyn had asked, just it seems like more about the nonprofit acceleration report, specifically, where that data came from. And so that actually came from our email list of we shouted out to about 50,000 nonprofit professionals, and we got 5,208 responses, to be exact. And we're able to really pull a lot of insights from all of the trends from those questions that were answered. So yeah, thank you. All right. Good stuff. So thankful to Pat and thankful for the Giving Block for hosting this today. Really appreciate it. Abby, thank you so much for being here, and all of your insights and really deep knowledge. I really love the recurring giving report. I think that's so essential to, where the sector is going and really how we can make fundraising sustainable. And Michael, thank you so much again for going into the nonprofit acceleration report, diving into those details. Multi-channel is where it's at. So I just leave you to it. Thank you again for your time today, and thank you again to everyone here.
Really.
Yeah, thanks so much everyone for coming. And Abby, Patrick, it's always a pleasure to see you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thanks, everyone.
There you go.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye. Thanks, Candace.